Hello, viewers out there in the world. I never thought the day will come where I make this kind of video, and it's probably the first time I've ever make a video like this before. And then for today's topics, we're gonna do like a three-part series where I talk about the entire series of Total Drama. We're not gonna do all seasons because that would take forever. So far, for this video, we're gonna be discussing about the first three seasons and what I like about the season and stuff, and my audience opinion on the season, and also going to be discussing the location of which season takes place in, and the cast, the teams, the plot, the challenges, the bonus stuff, the eliminations, character development, villains, romance, the finale, my top three characters, and my personal ranking for this season as a general. But interesting topic, and now for what the show is about. Well, basically, like a group of teenagers have a chance are competing in this game show for a chance to win $1 million. Like, can you imagine that? $1 million. Where like a certain amount of contestants will have to compete with each other or even against each other, and only one member will be left standing, walking out of the game with the cash. Like like this show has like three different categories. Like the pre-merge is basically where like the contestants are split into teams of two, where like they have to like compete in challenges to determine who's safe from elimination and to determine like who's at a chance of being eliminated. Once a team is eliminated, they will have to decide who they're sending home. So they'll have to go to like this little camp ceremony where like each contestant has like a chance to like try to vote off who they want to send home. And then like after like they put a vote, and then like the host, Chris McClain, will basically hand out the marshmallows. So like the first few people will hand over the marshmallows are normally the ones who are safe with zero votes, and then the next people who get their marshmallows will mainly have like one or a few votes, and then there's down to like the last two people that has the most two votes, and the person who doesn't receive a marshmallow is the person that got the most votes and will be eliminated from the island forever, unless if there's some kind of plot twist where they come back for another chance to compete in that season. And by the way, Chris McClain is like the host of the show. Like, he's the one who's in charge of hosting the show and in charge of the challenges and everything. And then there's this thing called interns, where like the interns are basically the ones that is responsible for like testing the challenges to make sure the challenge works and everything. And then there's this character, Chef Hatchet. He's basically like the chef of the crew, where he makes like pretty nasty food that's somehow worse than cafeteria food, and he's also basically Chris McClain's personal assistant and personal one of my favorite side characters outside of the contestants alongside Chris McClain. And okay, back to the point of the show. Like during the pre-merge, after like a certain amount of contestants has been voted off, we'll enter like the halfway point of the season, which is called the merge, where like where the teams has been breaking up, where like it's everyone for themselves, where like only one person can win the challenge, and then everyone that remains will have to vote off who they want to send home. And then once it's down to like the final three or final two contestants, we enter the finale, where only one will be left standing to win the $1 million. And these contestants, they tend to like make alliances so they can try to like stay in the game and last longer in the game. They'll even like influence other people to join their alliance to like gain the majority in the vote, to like vote off a contestant that they either don't like or might become a problem for them, or contestant that's like a huge, yeah, something like that, or even a contestant that costed them the challenge, or they can even vote off the weakest contestant. Like they could pretty much just vote off anyone for any reason, and then like they pretty much like form alliance anytime like during like the pre-merge or the merge, like 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 the yeah, yeah, that's pretty much that. And now for the further ado, it's time to get started by talking about the first season, season one. Total Drama Island, the very first season, the season that started it all. Without this season, we wouldn't have other seasons or fan made projects made by the community. And so far, the events of this season takes place on an island called Camp Wallenaqua. And this location is basically the most common location in the entire series. And then like this season had like a total of like 22 to 21 camper contestants. Like this is actually the first season where we had like the largest cast. Like it was like a very huge cast. Like it was a great cast. Like it has like some of the best cast for a great start with a strong start. And then like the teams for the challenge, the teams is like split into two teams, which is like an interesting team. It has like an interesting team, like the best, one of the greatest teams. And then like the plot, it has like an amazing plot, a great storyline. It has like a great storyline, and the pacing of the story was actually very well. Even though this is a long season, but the pacing was pretty well. And then like the challenges in the season, it has, even though it has some life-threatening challenges or even gross out challenges or even fun challenges, like this season was full of amazing challenges. Yeah. And then for bonuses, like sometimes every once in a while within seasons, whenever like a team wins a challenge or in the merge or a contestant wins a challenge, they actually get a reward. Where like not every episode is guaranteed to be an elimination challenge. Certain episodes will be more of a reward challenge where like you're only playing for a reward and no one gets eliminated. And then like the eliminations this season was pretty fair. It had like fair eliminations, and some of these eliminations was pretty funny. How like the first elimination, also known as AKA Ezekiel, he was like literally the first person voted off for making a questionable comment about women. And then there's characters like Noah, who was like the third person voted off because he pretty much did nothing during this challenge. And then there was like characters like Justin, who got voted off for no reason, and then like Tyler, who got voted off because in that challenge they all had to face their fears, and Tyler's fear was chickens, and Tyler was too chicken to face his fears with chicken. But then when this team lost the challenge, they all pretty much just voted for him. And then like other eliminations that I kind of find funny is Courtney's eliminations, which she didn't do anything wrong, but like her elimination was rigged by a certain character. Like she was unfairly eliminated that season considering she was a well-written character that season. And then we have characters like Bridget, who was voted off because she was spunky, because she got hit with a skunk spray. And we got characters like Lindsay, who was automatically eliminated for losing a challenge, and then DJ, who was automatically eliminated for bailing out of a challenge. Like this season had like good eliminations, like no problem with the eliminations. And the character development was great. Like I enjoyed the character development, like the friendships people make and the bond each character formed within each other. Like this season had like some great cast of characters, even though like majority of the characters for this generation of cast are typically stereotypes, like for example Lindsay being a stereotype, Heather being a stereotype, Tyler being a stereotype, Gwen being a stereotype, and Lashana being a stereotype. And if you haven't seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, then if you've seen that movie, then you will immediately recognize who Harold was based off of. And for the villains of the season, we have amazing villains. Like Heather was like basically the main villain of the entire season. Like She was like that one character that you could straight up dislike when you watch this season for like she literally like read Gwen's personal diary in front of on national TV, or when she kissed her boyfriend, or even like she done some crazy stuff. Like Heather has done some crazy stuff this season, like to start some drama. Like, bro, like Heather was crazy this season. And then like this season had like some of the interesting romance, like the romance between Gwen and Trent, and then there's like Lindsay and Tyler, Duncan and Courtney, Izzy and Owen. Like we started off with like this season had some great romance plot, and then for the finale, this season had like an amazing finale, like between Gwen and Owen. Like Gwen and Owen was like they were like a great pick for the finale. Like depends on fun fact, depending on which country you're watching the season on, the outcome may be different based on which country. Cause like say in one country Owen wins the season, but in the other country it was Gwen. But who do I prefer as a winner? I say Owen. I prefer Owen as the winner for that season. And then for my top three, for like my top three characters in this season, I would have to give that to characters such as, that's a pretty hard question. I'll say characters like, there's so many great characters this season. Like it's hard to choose which one is my all-time favorite. And then for my personal ranking for this season, I'll have to give the season a 9.5 out of 10. It's like one of the best starts and one of the most important seasons of total drama history.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Without further ado, let's dive into season 2. Total drama action. Now this season is actually interesting because in this season, the writers decided to take some steps forward with the season and some steps back with the season. Cause like instead of competing on an island, we're competing on an abandoned movie lot, which is actually very interesting. I actually like the whole concept of that. And then for like the cast of characters, it's basically the same cast, but the only difference is only like 14 to like 16 of them returned, and then like the rest of the contestants that competed for season 1 didn't return. So like near like a little bit more than half of the contestants returned, and then like an amount of other contestants didn't return for the season, which I kind of understand because they wanted to do something a little different by having less characters on each season. And then the teams for this season was actually very interesting because instead of the teams being picked by random, the teams are getting picked by 2 separate contestants. Like they get to pick their teams. Like I like the whole concept, even though it's pretty much started some drama in that season. And then the plot for this season was where do I even begin with this? The plot for this season was kind of okay, but it's not as good as the plot from the previous season. But the plot for that season was alright, but it was not really the best plot in the season. And then this season had like some of the more interesting challenges. Like instead of just doing random challenges, we're actually doing challenges based on movie genres, hence the location. Like we're doing like a Godzilla challenge, or an alien challenge, or even a horror movie challenge, or a prison break challenge, a western challenge. The list goes on. Even a sports challenge. Like, man, they really went all out with the challenges. Like, wow, it's like had some of the more interesting challenges. It's like you're watching a movie, but in a series. It's like watching a short movie based on this genre. Like, I actually enjoyed the challenges for that season. And then this is actually the first season to introduce us to the Aftermath, which is basically a sideshow that's basically in the season, which is kind of more of one of those seasons where they like interview eliminated contestants and they get to share their thoughts on the season and their eliminations and something like that. If I basically wrapped it up wrong, someone correct me in the comments if I said that all wrong. Like, for the aftermath for this particular season, I didn't really enjoy the aftermath too much in this season, because in this particular season, I just kind of find the aftermath show to be a little filler. It's just kind of feel like filler, but I get they wanted this season to be as long as the first season, but I kind of like the direction they went with this one. And then so far for the eliminations, this season has like pretty interesting elimination. Like this might be the first season where we actually, well, not including the next season, where the contestant actually has to vote out not one but two contestants. Where like the first two contestants that was voted off was like Jeff and Bridget, well, for basically just making out the whole time. Like they didn't really do much at the beginning of the season besides making out. Like this is probably the first season where the contestants had to vote off two contestants at the same time. And then like other eliminations was like left and right. Like there's like this one character, specifically Izzy, she gets eliminated pretty early, and then she just randomly comes back into the game early and then gets voted off again later on. Even though I forgot to mention how there were like two contestants that were eliminated last season, but they did make a return. And then the character development was, well, pretty funny in this season. It was actually pretty interesting. Like the character development and all the drama and everything. Like Trent going cuckoo for Gwen, and Harold stepping up, and like Harold starts off by being bullied, but then later on he eventually grows to like stand up for himself, and Duncan slowly coming from being the bad boy to more of an anti-hero. Like the list goes on. And then like for like the villains for this season was actually very interesting for like, because like nearly half the season Heather was pretty much the main villain once again. But then after her elimination, they kind of shift the villain focus onto both Courtney and Justin being the villain for like. The romance for the series was actually pretty funny. Like I already mentioned the whole Trent and Gwen relationship, and then like the whole Duncan and Courtney eliminate relationship for this season was pretty entertaining to watch, even though they had that whole love-hate romance where they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But it was still pretty entertaining to watch. And then for the finale for the season, this season kind of took way too many steps back for this season, for this season's finale. Like, it's not the worst finale, but in my opinion, this is definitely one of the weakest finales I have ever seen. Instead of the final two contestants actually doing the challenge, their winnings is basically being determined over a freaking vote. You got it, a vote. They don't need to do anything special to win. It's only determined by a vote. Where like Duncan and, for some reason, Beth were like the two contestants that made it to the finale. I mean, the finale would have been better if it was Duncan versus Lindsay and they actually did something more with the finale instead of the winning being determined by a vote. But overall, the finale wasn't really that great, and I preferred Duncan over Beth as the winner for the season. And I enjoyed Duncan, Courtney, and Harold this season. Like, it was a great season, but my total ranking for the season, I have to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like, I mean, this season's alright, but it's not the best season, and it's not really the worst season in my opinion.
Not bad.
Not bad, but not good.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to the last season we're going to be discussing in this video. And this one is actually one of my personal favorites, and still one of my personal favorites as an adult to this day. Total Drama World Tour. It is one of the biggest and one of the most best seasons I ever sat through in my entire life. Like, what makes this season so different from the other two is that World Tour, instead of being in an island or in an abandoned movie lot, we're traveling across the globe. yes, the contestants are going on the road, competing different challenges on different countries based on, depends on where they go. Like, they went to so many different countries and so many different locations in the season, traveling on a plane and everything, and then for the cast of this season, they brought back some of the same old cast members that competed for the first 2 seasons, and they brought back some of the older contestants that didn't compete for season 2, but they only competed for season 1. And they decided to shake things up by bringing in 2 new contestants. The first one being Alejandro, who's actually one of the more interesting characters. Like, he started off as a gentleman character. He started off as that one gentleman character who's actually secretly a main villain, and that was like one of the most perfect characters I ever see. And then the other new contestant is Sierra, the pretty much stereotype of an annoying fangirl, a crazed stalker fangirl, to put it that way. And then they decided to do something different for the teams this season, because instead of doing 2 teams for the season, they decided to do 3 teams. You heard me, 3 teams for this season. 3 teams for this season. And the teams, for once, actually got to pick their own name for their team. And then so far for the plot, some of the best plot I ever seen in my entire life for World Tour. Like, World Tour had some of the best plots I ever seen alongside Total Drama Island. Like, the challenges were fun to watch. Like, it was so amazing. Like, the challenges were amazing to watch, and then this season once again did the aftermath, but this time this is actually the first time where I actually sat down and enjoyed the aftermath, because every aftermath for World Tour was somewhat more interesting than the one I seen in Total Drama Action. Like, it was so fun. It was fun to watch the aftermath this season. And then the eliminations, oh boy, they had some pretty interesting eliminations this season. Like, they brought Ezekiel back, the person who got voted off first in the first season, even though he didn't compete in season 2, and he ended up being the first person voted off again, even though despite Duncan quitting the game at first. And this time Ezekiel got eliminated first for basically costing his team the challenge, and then this season's actually it's actually had interesting eliminations. Like, there's times where one of the team where some of the challenges were not determined on votes, like when it was when Lindsay and DJ were the only contestants left. Instead of choosing who to vote off, they had to do some kind of tiebreaker challenge to determine who gets to stay in the game and who gets to go home. And then there's that one tiebreaker challenge between Gwen and Courtney, and Courtney basically had the advantage in that tiebreaker due to Gwen's allergies. And then there was another tiebreaker, even though they chose not to do a challenge there because Chris just didn't like those specific 2 contestants. And then so far for the character development, the character development was well made. I actually enjoyed Noah as a character in this season. Where I kind of like the development between Noah and Owen being close, which actually builds up into one of the Total Drama spin-offs, which we'll talk about at a later point in time. And then the character development between Sierra and Cody, even though it was kind of weird, but I still enjoyed it. I kind of like the whole concept of Gwen and Courtney trying to get along as friends, and then it all changes, which I will talk about in a bit. And then for the villains, even though Heather is a villain in the season, but I kind of feel they turned Heather into an anti-hero this season, and Alejandro was more of the main villain of the season, which was actually enjoyable to watch. And then Courtney started off more as a regular contestant, even though she was the main villain throughout last season, but then she becomes a villain, a bit of a villain later on. This season actually did a well job. And then for like the romance, ooh, here it comes. The love triangle between Duncan, Courtney, and Gwen were like, it was at this point where like Duncan was losing interest in his girlfriend Courtney, where he becomes more attracted to Gwen, where it comes to the point where like later on in the season Duncan makes out with Gwen behind Courtney's back, and Tyler kind of got nosy and kind of peeked at them kiss, and then one episode later they got exposed, and this kind of turns Courtney into a little bit of a villain. Like, I can understand Courtney's frustration towards being cheated on, but then her frustration just kind of got annoying because it was at this point where she tried to start throwing challenges just to get Gwen voted off, which was kind of annoying because she was kind of allergic to winning at first, because she just basically wanted to get Gwen off the game so she could start focusing on winning challenges. Yeah, and you got to tell me, like, the romance between Heather and Alejandro that builds up throughout the entire season, man, that was peak. That was peak cinema. Amazing storytelling. And then for the finale, beautiful, the best finale. It was between Heather and Alejandro. Before this particular finale, I actually prefer Heather as the winner over Alejandro, and I think Heather kind of deserved this win a little bit more than Alejandro. And then the ending was pretty interesting. And then my top three characters would obviously be Noah, Heather, and Alejandro. Like, they were actually my personal favorites in this entire season. Like my personal ranking for this season, I have to give it a 10 out of 10, respectfully.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
And that is pretty much my ranking for my first 3 seasons. In the next video, I'll be talking about both season 4 and season 5. And in the video after that, I'll be talking about the spin-offs and then the reboot. And if you made it this far in the video, please put a comment to describe what's your favorite total drama season and what's your favorite total drama character and why. And that's pretty much all I have for this video, and stay tuned for part 2 of this video.